Welcome to Heal Yourself Connection, where it's all about self-discovery. How well do you know yourself? A question that I didn't know the answer to. So I started with self-discovery and came to the conclusion there are so many different ways for it. Luckily, there are also many different people for it, so each one can connect to the way that feels right for them. So I want to learn more about this and share this with you. Are you ready for asking the question, who am I? I am, so let's do this! Hi everyone, thank you for listening to Heal Yourself Connection. This is already episode number 6 and this one will be with Jade Willow. Jade had a very tough childhood, experienced so many losses and sexual abuse. Later on, she discovered she was married with a narcissist, and when she knew this, she decided to divorce him. Not long after this, she became sick and she needed to stop with working as a social worker. During all this chaos, she had this big calling to move to states to follow her dream, to follow her heart. Leaving everything behind was so hard to do, but now she can say that was the best thing she could do. She's feeling much better and has less symptoms. And is very happy now. Enjoy this episode and please don't forget to subscribe, rate and review this podcast on iTunes or Podbean. Thank you very much. Welcome to Heal Yourself Connection. Today I have Jade Willow with me. Welcome Jade. It's a real honor to have you here on the podcast and thank you very much for taking the time to come here and tell your story. I'm very excited.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's really my honor to be here. I appreciate it very much.
Well, today we're going to talk about, I don't know yet, but Jade, going to tell her about her life story and what she discovered in her journey of self-discovery. And so Jade, can you tell us how your path on self-discovery started?
Let's see. To say how my path started, we'd probably have to start with what went wrong before what went right. I like to say that I had a lot of life training to end up where I am. The very first memory I have is being 3 years old, hearing a noise that woke me up out of bed in the middle of the night. I got out of my bed and my parents' light was on, and I walked into the room and I walked around the bed, and on the floor, tangled in the sheets, was my dad. I tried to wake him up, not understanding that he had actually died. Oh. And so I ran to my grandmother's room and woke her up and said, something's wrong with Daddy. That's the first memory I have. It's the only memory I have of him. Oh. And that was way back in the 60s. So that was not a time where child psychology was very popular or well known. So no one really ever talked to me about it. I learned that it wasn't okay to talk because my mom remarried then a year later. And they adopted a child. And a year after that, then on Thanksgiving Day, my mom and her sister, who was my favorite aunt, were on the way to the hospital to visit my grandmother and were hit head-on by a drunk driver. Ooh. My aunt went through the windshield and was killed. She was in a coma for 4 days and she died. My mom, because she sat so close to the steering wheel, was not thrown through the windshield, but hit the windshield. Mm-hmm. And so she had a closed head TBI. However, that was also something that, was not prevalent or really well known then. And so she was undiagnosed. Mm-hmm. People who knew her, I was 7 at the time. Whoa. The people who knew her said that she was a completely different person after that. She also had a lot of survivor's guilt. So she took to drinking. My stepfather took to drinking. So then on top of all of this trauma, we had this all of this dysfunction and this self-medicating. So,
and how did you feel at that point after the accident, or you don't remember anything about that time, or?
I don't remember.
Mhm.
I remember feeling unsure. I remember feeling that my mom was going to die like my dad had.
Oh.
And then I would be left with this stranger.
Oh.
It was just really chaotic. That's what I feel, chaotic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then when she came home, she was so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
After she died 12 years ago. And after she died, I found a letter that she had written to me in the event of her death. But the letter was written, I don't know, like almost 8 years before she died.
Oh.
And in it, she writes about how much fear she had because when she came back from the hospital, the house was a mess. And so she felt like, this is the TBI talking, that's all I can figure.
Mm-hmm.
She felt like she had to train me to be her replacement if something ever happened to her. I was 7. You know.
Oh, but the letter, it was like now 8 years ago, or when you were 8 years old?
No. She was in the letter, which we found after she died 12 years ago. In the letter, she references back to that time.
Yeah, okay.
And how she felt when she came back from the hospital. Oh. Because our relationship was different. I felt very much like a Cinderella growing up. Mm-hmm. Very much Cinderella. Like, they had this new family. You know, my mom, my stepdad, their child, and then there was me.
Oh.
And I got the brunt of the cleaning duties, the household chores. They were really strict with me. They were less so. I mean, I felt very Cinderella-ish.
Yeah.
And my mom apparently picked up on that at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So when she's reflecting on her life in this letter, she goes into explanation that she felt like she had to prepare me to be her replacement should anything like that happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And it really occurred to me how much fear played in her life. And I get it. I absolutely, positively get it. Mm-hmm. Because first, okay, if you go back in her life, she was, I think, maybe 10 or 12. And my grandmother had to go into the hospital for a surgery. And that was the time, apparently, that you could just place your kids in an orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandfather went to work and couldn't take care of the kids. And so while she was in my grandmother was in the hospital, my mom, her sister, and their 4-year-old brother went into the orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, he got boils. Like, there was all of this responsibility on my mom because she was the oldest of the 3 to take care of the other 2. Mm-hmm. The nuns wouldn't let her do that. Like, they left. There were a whole horror stories of that. But mm-hmm. The point is, he got boils, he got sick, and then he died. So she carried that guilt. And then she carried the guilt that she was driving the car when, even though it wasn't her fault, she was driving the car when, my aunt was killed.
Oh, no.
Right? And then, of course, she was laying next to my dad when he died.
Oh, no.
Right? And then, to make matters worse, a few years later, probably 3 or 4 after my aunt in the car accident, my uncle was a missionary priest in the Amazon, and he came home to visit, mm-hmm. and he died in our basement.
Huh?
Just a fluke aneurysm.
Mm.
Nothing. So there was all of this death happening around her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something you can control easily. And instead of understanding that you can't control life,
mm-hmm.
she tried to control it harder.
Oh.
And you know what happens when you hold on really tight to things, right? You kill them.
Mm.
And so that discomfort growing up with being held like this
Mm-hmm.
made me want to seek something else.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how I would do that, but I just knew there was something else I needed or wanted, because that didn't feel good. And then when I read this letter from my mom, and she actually knew that she was afraid, and she knew how ridiculous it was, she still couldn't let go of it. She didn't have the skills or the knowledge or the courage to explore something different.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a really hard story. Yeah, and a hard life then. Because like you were saying, you didn't feel you belong there, and then your mom being that hard on you, and how did you survive that? Like,
honestly, there were no boundaries in my house, which set, and then you had no authority in your own life. So that set me up to be a victim out in the world. So at age 16, I was sexually assaulted by my two best friends, who I thought were best friends at the time. Clearly they were not. And then not having any authority in my own life, not having boundaries. So then I accepted that as it was my fault, right? And that's all I had to offer. So that led into a lot of promiscuous behavior. It also set me up to be sexually harassed in college by one of my professors. And that was probably the biggest turning point for me. It was really low, a really low point in my life. I stopped dressing. I stopped showering. I ate poorly. I stopped really going to class. And finally, in college, we had big sister, little sisters, right? So I had a senior friend. And I was at a party with her, and I made a comment. Somebody said something, and I just made some small comment that nobody else caught, and she caught it. And she called me on it because he had done the same thing to her.
and he was there. The teacher was also there on the party then, or?
No, he was not at the party. No,
okay.
No. He would do things in class to me, to point, to bring attention to me that was uncomfortable. He would keep me in closed doors in the office, call me into the office, and then make overtures. And then make threats if I spoke out about it. So people were seeing this change in me, and then at this party, I don't know, somebody was probably talking about this teacher, and I made some comment like, he's not all he's cracked up to be, something like that, and she caught. So in talking to her, then she encouraged me to talk to the social worker at school. And because I was so, I don't like this term weak, but I'm going to use that word. Because I was so weak, he went further with me across that line than he did it with anybody else. And that's why he had not been prosecuted before, because up until then it was he said, she said, but I had concrete evidence of the things that he had done. And so I was able, because he was doing it to other people, I stood up for the other people, not for myself. And so we were able to prosecute him and get him fired. That experience of standing up, even though it was standing up for somebody else, that experience of standing up felt so much more amazing to me than sitting in fear, that I couldn't go back to my old ways. So that was the turning point. That's when I started looking for another way to live. And I started understanding that what happens to us isn't as important as who we become through those experiences. I could have either let it or any of my other experiences in life, I could have let them continue to define me as a victim, and I would only go forward being a victim, or I could let them define me as a hero, and I could go forward as a hero.
Wow. I really love that. Wow, it's really connecting. I thank you for sharing it like that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I might. It's yeah. I'm just blown away for the moment. Yeah, it just resonates so much with me, like all the stuff that happened before, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter in what situation you are, you still have the power to do something about it and change it in whatever you want. And with you, in your case, you didn't do it for yourself, but you did it for other people. So when, yeah, how did you feel? Because now you did it for other people, but you didn't see yourself at that point, or is it furthering life in your life that you saw yourself?
Just because my intent was to do it for other people didn't mean I didn't do it for myself.
Ah,
You know, it sort of is to yourself by default, right?
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
can't not.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But you're not like I didn't do it for myself. I did it for everyone else. So other people they don't get abused anymore. And yeah, it's really brave. And how did your mother and the people at home react to that? And
Oh, that was not a good story.
oh,
uh, I did not tell my mom because we were all about shame based.
okay.
It wasn't okay to make a mistake. It wasn't okay, to be less than perfect. My mom had this fear dynamic going on, and that's
Hmm.
what goes with it. So I didn't tell her until it was all over.
Okay. Yeah.
And when it was all over, the president of the college sent me an amazing letter
Hmm.
thanking me for my courage and that they could not have done it without me, and just a glowing letter. And I thought, well, now it's done, right?
Hmm.
Now it's done. Now I can tell them. And I shared the letter with my mom,
Hmm.
and she read it, and she was furious.
Oh.
She was really mad because we don't talk about things in my family, right?
Hmm.
So the fact that other people knew, that I told anybody, that the president of the college knew, that my friends, I told my closest friends because they were supporting me through it.
Hmm.
Um, that was not acceptable in my family,
Oh.
to share outside. And so my mom actually threw me out of the house.
Oh.
Was
Okay.
that TBI, it just messes
Yeah.
people. She wasn't, there's so many things that she did that I considered abuse. And now understanding that she had a TBI the whole time, I
Hmm.
can't really fault her as much as I used to.
Yeah. Yeah. So you forgave her in her. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very strong. That you can do that. It's very, yeah, releasing for yourself, or how do you say it?
It is very releasing. It
Yeah.
is. It is.
Yeah. And how did you feel like? Because you get this letter and it's really heart touching that you were this brave to come out and get this courage out of you, and now it's like you're doing something bad in the eyes of your mom, so it's like, huh, what do I do next? So what did you do next?
I packed my bags. I
Oh.
packed my bags, and I went marching out the door, and my mom stopped me at the door. She was completely remorseful. She didn't want me to go. I don't know what, like, again, this
Hmm.
TBI thing, it was,
Yeah.
I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it until years later, but
Yeah.
um, you just, I was what, freshman in college, so I was 18, 19.
Yeah.
I didn't have anywhere to go. So,
Yeah.
I mean, when she asked me to stay, I stayed.
Yeah.
Um, our relationship was different after
Hmm.
that, of course. But she
Better or
just different. I'm
different?
going to say
Okay.
just different because the fact that something bad happened
Mm.
proved to her that bad things happen.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
When you're in the midst of a moment, you have two choices. It can either prove to you a premise that yes, bad things always happen, so we have to always expect bad things, or you accept the premise that things happen and we make them bad.
Mm. Yeah.
So my mom believed that bad things always happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so this just confirmed her bias,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So for her, then she held on even more tightly with me. You know,
Yeah.
I was a grown adult and I had ridiculous curfews. I
Mm.
had, you know, she just treated me like I was 12 the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it was pretty strained.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty strained in that way until I moved out and got married at 24.
Yeah. But she was actually scared of losing you, and that's why she was holding you like, yeah.
Absolutely.
And how, yeah, when you got married, how did your mother react? It's like,
Exactly like you think she would.
yeah,
It was not pretty. It
okay.
wasn't pretty. The announcement of my proposal, it
Mm-hmm.
went really bad, really, really bad, because she heard through the grapevine that I had already been engaged for a long time, which was not
Oh,
true. But instead of coming and talking to me about it,
mm-hmm.
she just let it fester. So
Okay.
that when we did, you know, when we did actually get engaged and announce it, you know, they were just they exploded. You know, do you think we're stupid? Do you think we didn't know? And I
Yeah.
was totally bombarded. Like I was so taken off guard. I had no idea. It wasn't until years later that she
Okay.
actually told me that that's what happened. That's why they had the explanation
Yeah.
or the reaction that they had. So it made sense then. But you know, it was just that I used that then as one more example of how you create a reality in your head that is not necessarily playing outside your head,
Mm-hmm.
and you can totally ruin things.
Yeah. That's
And it's
true.
truly you creating the drama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
So
how did you discover that then, that kind of thing that you experienced it yourself? Or how
well,
did you learn this?
when she told me what happened,
Mm-hmm.
it clicked right there.
Yeah.
It clicked. I'm like, here you had this whole thing and you totally missed this moment because you thought there was a moment over here that I kept you out of.
Yeah.
So it taught me how to just be present here, and
Yeah.
if I have questions, to ask them.
Yeah.
The other thing in that was a turning point for me was having my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
When I had my daughter, I thought she was so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We miscarried the first baby, the baby before her.
Mm-hmm.
And then her pregnancy was really troubling, to say
Oh.
the least.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was born 7 weeks early and with, you know, lung issues and things.
Mm-hmm.
And then after she was born, we had more medical issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like she was so important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I looked at her and I felt like I could see heaven, like the reflection of heaven in her eyes. Like she was just
Oh.
that fresh
Yeah.
from the other side. And I
Beautiful.
thought, I need to be the kind of mother that she deserves.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be the kind of woman I want her to grow up to be.
Wow.
And that was really the first step of actively seeking. The rest was sort of self-discovery by accident.
Yeah.
Personal development by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Really the first time I took charge of my journey.
Oh.
And I really started to seek out books
Mm-hmm.
that spoke to something different than the religion I grew up in.
Mm-hmm. Do you
And
have examples of books that you still remember, or?
the Celestine Prophecy, that was
Mm-hmm.
one of them.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first. And then Ayanna Van Zant's books. She was so amazing. Conversations with God. That was an important one on my journey. I feel like I'm forgetting Sarah Van Brandt's Simple Abundance.
Hmm.
Awesome book. That was like Oprah's beginning. It was way back in the day.
Oh.
And it was the beginning of the Attitude of Gratitude movement.
Oh.
And great, awesome book. Fabulous, simple, direct. I feel like it's one of those jewels that's been overlooked for decades now.
Okay, now you're bringing it back, so people go get the book.
Yay. Yeah, and so I just really, we didn't have much money, so
Mhm.
I would save up my money and just buy one book after another and after another, and I would devour it.
Yeah.
Sark is another awesome author on my journey. I have almost all of her books, and I've worked them through front to back and back again.
Okay.
They really help me. They help me go back and relearn the things I missed in my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the part about being a child. When you're 7 and your mom comes home from the hospital and thinks she has to train you as a replacement, that's the day that your childhood ends.
Yeah.
So I got to go back and do some more through the Sark books, especially the journal and playbook.
And you have examples, just journaling, you say, like.
I actually have her book. Woo! Somewhere. Oh, actually, I don't. I don't know where. No, it looks like I lent it out.
Yeah, that's no problem. You still know some examples that you did with like exercise or.
Her book
Uh-huh.
is huge. It's a huge, big book.
Oh.
And you open it up, it's all in bright colors.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, on one page, she, you know, she's done some drawing, but then the rest of it is really blank for you to do a particular exercise, or maybe
cool.
just draw.
Yeah.
Or maybe a word collage.
Mm.
There's some direction, but then there's just writing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's mostly journaling then that she's advised to do. Yeah, that's very powerful.
And that's more what I've been journaling since my daughter was born, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I journaled when I was younger, but my mother, having no boundaries, found my journal, would read it, and then use it against me.
Oh,
so that's when I learned how to write poetry.
Oh.
Because I could hide things in the poems, and she wasn't very interested in poems.
Oh.
Wasn't interested in deciphering them. So that's how I became a poet.
Wow.
And so then that was my journaling for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Until my daughter was born. I started journaling about her, and then I decided I came to Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way.
Mm-hmm.
And that has more writing exercises in it. I've always been a writer. That's what I really wanted to do. But my parents wouldn't fund that. They wouldn't support that. So that's how I ended up going into social work.
Yeah.
And I was a social worker then. I studied social work, and then I was a social worker for 28 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the side then, I did all of this self-discovery, personal development, and metaphysical things. I learned all about energy and how we can heal, and crystals and things like that. So I put those all together, the personal development. And that's how I ended up becoming a medicine woman.
Mm-hmm. So tell me more about that. A medicine woman, like what do you do? Or because, tell me first about that.
No, go ahead. Because why?
No, it was like you were telling, in an email to me, like you had written a book, Strongest in Our Broken Places. But I think that will come with the medicine woman story, or
that was the first that was the first step towards becoming the medicine woman. For a long time, I served as, I'll call it, counsel to people, my friends, to people I worked with. People would seek me out for advice. And I don't give advice so much as I ask questions that let people find their own answers.
Mm.
And then I've collected all of these little wisdoms, right?
Mm.
Like, it doesn't matter what happens to you. It really only matters who you become through those experiences. That's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There is no right and wrong.
Mm.
That's another one. And
Yeah.
I had all of these. And so people kept telling me, you should write a book. You should write a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. And I put all of those little wisdoms and how I came to those wisdoms in that book. And then at the end of each chapter, there are exercises for you to do as the reader
Oh, cool.
to put those into play. You know, because it's one thing to just read something or watch a
Mm-hmm.
video. It's another thing to actually know how to put it into action. And not
Yeah.
everybody can afford to, you know, purchase your time as
Yeah.
a, you know, a consultant or a counsel or a medicine woman.
Mm-hmm.
So the book offers, you know, like, because that's how I started, right? I didn't have enough money. I started with books. So
Yeah.
that's my book.
And it's you have one book, this book, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
And as I was talking with the publisher about it and getting it ready to be published, I realized the difference in my body
Mm-hmm.
when I would talk to her about the book versus when I was at work at my regular job.
Mm-hmm.
And the energy, it was just light and dark,
Oh.
light and heavy. It wasn't this social work, and I'm so grateful for the years I had because I got to work with some amazing people. I worked in hospice. I worked with Alzheimer's patients. I did therapy. I worked with adults with special needs, and they're all so amazing, and they taught me so much. But the bureaucracy where I was at, I was, you know, locked in an office in the basement, and I didn't have really any contact with my people anymore. It was all, you know, doing things on their behalf, and it was making me sick. And I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Oh.
And the pain was extraordinary, as you know, as it is per the diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was talking about this book, I was getting excited. I mean, oh my God, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So that led me to, and at the time I had been married to my daughter's father for 20 years, and discovered that he was a narcissist. And with a narcissist comes a whole lot of lies. So the illusion that was my life had shattered right in the middle of writing the book, actually. And so that part is in the book. Like, okay, so now it's really time to put all this touchy-feely crap to use, right?
Mm-hmm.
It did. It worked. You know, it passed the test.
Oh.
I took those things that I was talking about and I applied them to the situation, and I really was able to move through it and grow from it.
Yeah. So it was like you used your skills from being a social worker, and then you needed that for your own healing, and oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And that really is how life is, right? We get our lessons, we grow our strengths, and then we come upon a situation or someone else that needs that. And then we're able to share it.
Yeah.
So,
and your illness was together with the divorce of your husband, or was it?
It was after.
After, okay.
Yeah, it was about 6 months into my new relationship.
Yeah. Okay.
And, you know, and I felt really bad, right? Like, you didn't sign up for this, you know, but, you know, he didn't see it that way. He took me for everything that I was. So 2 years later then, when it was really, really hard for me to work an 8-hour day, we decided that I would move here to Michigan. I lived in Indiana, so I moved across 2 states and start a new life, and just decided I'm going to do what makes me happy, and I'm going to open up shop as a medicine woman.
Oh, so you left everything behind, like the social worker, and you just leaped into the unknown.
Yep.
Oh, and how did you feel at the point that you had to make that decision? Because,
I felt, you know what? I felt totally great about it until I would
oh,
think about it.
oh, yeah, yeah, I know that feeling.
Once that monkey mind starts going, like, and none of my friends were supportive. I
Mm,
mean, they acted like it. They were like, "Oh, I just want you to be happy," but it was all that whole, "I just want you to be happy. I
yeah,
want you to be sure you're doing the right thing,"
yeah,
because it was crazy walking
mm-hmm,
away from almost a 30-year career, walking
yeah,
away from where I had lived most of my life, walking away from all of my support system to be with a
mm,
man I had only known a year and a half, two
mm-hmm,
years, without a job prospect lined up. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense. And yet in my heart, it made all the sense in the world,
mm,
because we don't know. This is one of the things life has taught me, because I have suffered so much loss, is that you don't always get tomorrow.
yeah,
And I had never known happiness with my first husband like I have now with my second. I'd
mm-hmm,
never known that. It
mm-hmm,
was a totally different experience. And we're getting older. I'm not in my 20s.
mm-hmm,
I was 40 something then.
mm-hmm,
So what was I going to wait for?
yeah.
You know?
But it's scary. Like, I think most people will be like, whoa, I have nothing, but I still going to jump because my
Yeah.
heart is saying to do that.
That didn't kick in until after I moved. And I was like,
Ah,
"Oh, what have I done?"
yeah, I can imagine that. And how, yeah, how did you do it? You just went and started with the medicine practicing, or how do you call it?
I just did. I just started to do online what I used to do in the office or
Ah,
in my
yeah.
life, and when I would answer the phone when a friend would call or something, I just, got into a bunch of groups on Facebook and um,
Oh.
started, when people would present a problem or a concern, I
And
offered, you
what
know,
kind of problems can people come to you?
um, anything that's a problem to you. It
Oh,
might be,
everything.
it's what you define as a problem. Because all
Okay.
I'm going to help you do is look at it a different way so that maybe it doesn't look like a problem anymore.
Mm.
Because all problems are messages,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful. So your book was already published now, or is it? Oh,
Yeah, it
wow.
came out in 2014.
Yeah. And you moved in.
2014.
Ah,
I moved.
whoa.
I moved in July, and the book came out in August.
Whoa, it's like 2014 was the
It was
year
the
of the
year.
change.
It was the big year.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really big year. And you're still here, happy? How did that change?
I have very little symptoms of fibromyalgia now.
Wow.
Um, and I really do think it was my soul crying out, and in rebellion for the life I was not leading, and it really
Yeah.
wanted to be doing something different.
Wow.
So I'm extremely happy now.
Wow.
I love engaging with people, whether it's email or it's on chat or it's just in the Facebook groups or on my Facebook pages.
Mm-hmm.
I do everything's remote. It's so amazing when you work with energy. You don't have to be in the same room with someone to do a
Mm-hmm.
healing. And some of my best healing work now has been done over Skype. Uh,
Wow.
and it's fascinating. It's so much fun. I love helping people figure out the puzzle pieces,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can, like, because that's always what it feels like, right? When I'm talking with someone, I feel like they almost have it. They just have to turn, like when you work a puzzle piece and you're like, it's the right piece,
Yeah.
I know it, but it won't go in, and you just have to turn it a specific
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
That's how it is. That's how life is.
Yeah. 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 Can you tell us a little bit more about medicine woman that you practice or
Absolutely, absolutely. There are two. What I call myself is an intuitive chi therapist
Mhm.
because I intuitively use chi therapeutically. So that's how
Okay,
I came up with that name.
cool.
Um, and I do that in a number of ways. I can do that with healing. I'm trained in Reiki, therapeutic touch. I've self-educated on crystals. And then I do a lot of things intuitively. Spirit and I are pretty tight, and they give me a lot of guidance on what to do with an individual. And so in the healing session, all I really do is work in the aura field. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
lay hands on anymore. It's just evolved to a point where I just work the 7 layers of the aura with
Mm-hmm.
7 different crystals. And then I do what they call like a shaman's journey
Mm-hmm.
and do whatever that I'm directed to there. And by doing that, when I check the chakras before and after, and I don't do any more work with chakras. I just keep it in the aura, and by the time I'm done, all the chakras are registering well.
Yeah.
So that would be, it usually takes about an hour.
Yeah.
But for up to 3 days, then the energy still works. People are noticing things change.
Mm-hmm.
And the results are instantaneous. You know, people say things like, I had one gentleman get up, he had a limp, a prominent limp for 10 years. He got
Mm-hmm.
off the table without that limp. It was
Oh,
just gone.
wow.
I work with mental illnesses. I work with physical ailments, generalized anxiety, just for relaxation.
Yeah.
I also work with people in their relationships because
Mm-hmm.
chi is everywhere, right? There's chi in our relationship and how we're exchanging it. And so when you learn how to direct your communication, you are then directing your chi better.
Your chi, you mean your life's energy, you
Life
mean
force energy. Yep.
like yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's beautiful.
one of the greatest things I love about this is that, like, I remember I told you I had all of those like little wisdoms that I had
Mm-hmm.
that went
Mm-hmm.
in the book. And one of them that's in the book is you're always the teacher, forever a student. And I maintain that balance with every client. So I don't get lost into the ego of being a medicine woman. We're
Mm-hmm.
medicine people together. We all have our own medicine. It's just my job to teach you that you have it.
Mm.
It's not my job to give it to you because you were born with it. That was your
Yeah.
birthright.
Mm-hmm.
One of my soapbox issues lately is this whole idea of women who empower other women.
Mm-hmm.
We, as individual human beings, are born empowered. We are empowered by spirit. Nobody else can empower you. You
Mm-hmm.
can give away your authority, and I can teach you how to take your authority back. But
Mm-hmm.
empower people. People
And
come empowered.
how can you tell it then that you were born with it and that people are sparkling or yeah, or taking the mirror like you also have this looking yourself or yeah.
Yes, yeah. What when I do the healing session, depending on what's wrong and what I see,
Mm-hmm.
the session is full of messages for me to give, as feedback to that person. Oh, I can see that you're not maintaining your boundaries well enough. You're giving away your energy to other people. You
Mm-hmm.
let them drain you. That's why you have chronic fatigue syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a message in every problem.
Yeah.
So I help people interpret that. And with that knowledge, then they feel empowered. They feel like their power has come back, even though it never really went anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like they have more control because they have knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's why we went searching in the books for this rediscovering them or just reprinting, or I don't know how you will call it.
Well, I think on some level, our soul understands that we've been taught wrong. And our soul begins our quest for the right information. You know, our parents give us, do the best that they know how to do. They give us the information they were given. But a lot of that information was meant to control us.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of it is fear-based, and fear is all about control, right? If I make you afraid of this, then you'll do what I say to do, rather than make your own decision, and that will keep you safe. But the idea of life is not playing safe. The idea of life is playing open.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And how did you get in touch with your intuition? Because you said you say that you do a lot with your intuition, but how can we get in touch with our intuition? Or
as you begin to stop relinquishing your authority to these crazy programs and beliefs, the more you will understand your intuition's already there. It's been there all along. People use phrases like, down deep I knew, or my gut was telling me. That the point is never that you're not in touch with your intuition. The point is that you've been ignoring it.
Yeah. And how can we get in touch again?
To be quiet. If you can spend some time meditating, journaling is an awesome way. I mean, I guess it's because I'm a writer, but I spend 2 hours every morning in what I call power hour, even though it's more than 1 hour, but
power hours.
Power hours, right? And I am journaling that time. I like to use oracle cards. Do you know what those are?
No.
Oracle cards. It's a deck of cards, right? Not playing cards. And there's so many variations. You know, I particularly use a Kuan Yin one. I have a great affinity for the goddess of Kuan Yin. I feel like her feminine energy is really lacking in today's world, and so I enjoy connecting with her. So you'll pick a card, and then that card has a specific message for you for the day.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so I have 2 sets of cards, and the other one is more Native American, which is also another affinity of mine. And so I'll pick one card, and I'll meditate on it, and then I'll journal about what it means in my life, what I think the message is for me, and then I'll move on to the next card and do the same thing.
Yeah.
And then that sort of sets the tone for my day. And it's never, doesn't cease to amaze me how then those messages show up throughout the day, or it's a message that somebody comes to me and that's the answer for them. You know, that's the wisdom. Again, always a teacher, forever a student.
Yeah. Wow. That's really amazing, and a different way to discover yourself, or just, being quiet with yourself and doing this journaling, and it's really beautiful. No, that's thank you very much for all your wisdom.
You're welcome. Thank you for this time.
I think because you said you say you are a writer, so I think there are other books coming, or
I am working on a second book. I do have a blog.
Oh, okay.
So I'm up to date with that. You know, that's on.
And where can people find you? Can you say?
WillowSongMedicine.wordpress.com.
Okay, I will write it in the below this. No, it's really amazing. That you're so positive and you just shine your light, and all the stuff that happens earlier, you didn't let them define you. You used it as your power, or your like you said, it is not what I can say it. Maybe you have to say it again, that it doesn't define you, what happens to you in the past, but what you are becoming. That's the main message. So why, yeah, that's why I wanted to ask something else. So why you want to bring, yeah, your message to the world, like the Willow song, like you said. Can you tell us your big why? Your big why in life for bringing, helping people with your knowledge, and I think that you are really passionate about that.
Because before this, I didn't know that suffering was my choice. That because of the way I was looking at things and the expectations I had, I made suffering a reality, and it doesn't have to be.
That's beautiful. So you always have a choice.
Always have a choice. What your circumstances are, no matter what happens to you, you have a choice as to how it defines you, whether you're going to be a victim or a hero.
Wow. That's
I don't even like survivor. You know, there's victims and survivors. I don't even like that word survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it identifies you as someone who survived something.
Mm-hmm.
So you automatically are associated with that trauma, and that doesn't have to be your story anymore.
No.
Just like having eggs this morning for breakfast doesn't define me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Something that happened 20 years ago doesn't define me.
No.
So,
no,
but I can be a hero.
Yeah, because it made you actually the person that you are today because of all of the suffering. And yeah, I think there are all lessons behind them, and when you see that, then you can go on with the next. Like we all here are to learn about, yeah, our lessons and our path on life.
Right, and time is going to go on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do I really want in 25 years to still be lamenting about this stuff? You know, then I've just wasted 25 years. I have 25 years then to, you know, then I'll be looking back on the 25 years saying I wasted the 25 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Going back to your intuition question,
Mm-hmm.
I do have an innate born, I am empathic also. On top of the intuition that everybody has, I'm empathic, which means I have a greater sense of feeling what other people are feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people can come into a room with a headache. I can start to get a headache. People can come in and I know they're sad even when they're pretending not to be. Mm-hmm. So this gives me an advantage in being a medicine woman that I really can help people even when they've convinced themselves they're okay. Mm-hmm. I can help them because I know the truth. I can sense the truth. And so I can lead them and direct them more that way. That makes sense.
Yeah, it can, but it also be hard for you because you feel so much. Can you make how can I say this? Because you're being so empathic, you say you feel everything around you, but sometimes you feel so much that it will be too much for you. How can you?
Well, I think that was another contributing factor to the fibromyalgia. I didn't know that I was empathic. I didn't know that all these things that I was feeling was not mine. It kind of lent me to be kind of thinking I was crazy. So understanding that I was empathetic and that this was not other people, this was not my stuff, it was other people's, and doing more energy work to clean out my own energy field. For a long time, I set up blocks. Empaths will talk about setting up blocks. I don't like that. I didn't like blocks. I feel like blocks keep out the good as well as the bad. Right? So I tend to think of it more like filters. I set up filters so that anything coming in was clean and it was only the information I needed in order to help somebody. And if I didn't need it, then please don't let it in. Yeah.
And how do you do that? I know it's a mind question.
It's a conscious thing. It's a conscious thing.
Yeah.
But it's also an energetic thing. So what I do is I don't meditate per se as people define meditation. I do a lot of visualization. So I sit in the quiet, in the dark, A lot of times after a detoxing bath, I will lay down, I'll put crystals on my body,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll see, I'll just check in with my energetic body and see what's going on.
Yeah.
I am very visual, so I'll get a picture of it, and then I can love myself back to being healthy. And what that means is everything has a vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in life has a vibration. Our words, our thoughts, our feelings, they all have vibrations.
Yeah.
Sickness has a vibration, right? So when I keep my vibration at the vibration or the frequency of love, then things like sickness and illness and sadness and depression, those things, they can't survive in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at energetically what looks awry. Oh, that looks like a hole. Oh, that looks like depleted. Oh, that looks red. Sometimes it shows up different colors.
Yeah.
And I'll just tap into my heart chakra and throw love at it and raise myself, or grace. That's the other word I use. And raise my vibration to love and grace.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just sort of resolves itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So yeah, you can see there are many different ways to do this, and this is one of them. It's very beautiful how people can find and see that there are actually different things, and they just have to feel what feels right for them. And yeah, I really love that. And you were saying with the intuition, I heard somewhere that the intuition can come in different ways. It depends how you are as a person. Maybe you are like someone that feels a lot, or that can visualize a lot, or what is the other part? I don't know if you.
Some people hear things.
Yeah, here. So you can. Okay. So you can get messages through hearing other people saying, and then also like that. But how can you discover for yourself? Okay, what kind of intuition? Yeah, it's just discovering.
Exactly. You have to sit with yourself and get to know yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really do, and you have to understand that if you hear a voice in your head, it's not necessarily, a mental illness.
No.
If you see a picture, it's not just your imagination.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're feeling something, it's not necessarily that you're, depressed.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stop judging is pretty much the key there.
Yeah, but it was for me very new. Like, okay, there are different ways that it will come, that it can come to you,
Yes.
or that it's. So it's like, oh, okay. So I'm going to meditate about it and see.
Good. Let me know how it goes. I want to know.
Okay, that I will do. I would love. No, I will thank you for this amazing conversation we had, and all your wisdom and your story. Thank you very much for coming to Heal Yourself Connection. Where can people find you? Do you have a website or?
I do have a website. It's willowsongmedicine.wordpress.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'll type that out for you if you need me to. That's fine. So you can put it in the comments or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of long.
Okay.
And then I'll also include my email. So if anybody has any questions, they can personally email me. That's fine. There's also a contact tab on the website. I'm also on Facebook. And I have groups. They're really open. I'm looking for some people to have some really deep, meaningful conversations about this kind of stuff.
So, if people are interested, you can always contact her. And your book, they can buy it on your site, or?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, and I can send you that link as well.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's on Amazon. It comes through me, so if you want to send me an email asking for it, we can do it that way too. I take PayPal.
Okay, that's good. Well, I have one question left. I always do a surprise question. the rest are also, but now it's like a surprise right here now on the moment, like what I'm going to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's an intuitive question, is what
Yeah.
you're telling me.
So I'm already testing myself. How do I work? um, yeah. If you can go back. Wait. Huh? Yeah. If you can go back when you were a child, what would you say to yourself? Because yeah, point.
If I could talk to my younger self,
Yeah.
I would just say it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all okay.
It's all okay.
And everything's happening exactly the way it needs to.
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, because you can see now that it actually is something that helps you in your journey.
There's a
Yeah.
reason for everything. We may not find out what that reason is until the day after we die, but there's a reason. I guarantee it, there's a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is on purpose.
That's beautiful if we can all see that. And yeah, like Alci says it, see the opportunity in the problem, not a problem in the opportunity.
Yep.
So Jade, I really, really want to thank you for having this amazing story and all the wisdom that you shared in these episodes.
Oh, well, thank you for giving me this space. It really is very meaningful for me.
Oh, great. And listeners, thank you very much for tuning in and viewing on YouTube. So thank you. And we'll see and hear you next time. So Jade, thank you very much and see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.